As the budget draws ever closer, hints of what might be in it are starting to trickle out. On the opposition side, there are now outlines of a policy on superannuation and even suggestions that negative gearing might be tackled at the next election. Well, Angus Taylor is the Liberal member for Hume and a former banker, close to the fiscal action in Canberra at present, and he joins me now from Melbourne. And Angus Taylor, let's go to the review of Medicare first, because I understand you've been pretty active in the debate in the party room. The Health Minister was at pains to say it wasn't about cuts. Why not talk about savings?
Well, ultimately, the health budget's going to continue to increase, Ticky. That's inevitable. The question is how we contain those increases in a way that's sustainable. And that's why talking about cuts make no sense. We have to find a way of making sure that health expenditure goes up at a rate not too distant from our tax revenue. Otherwise, we'll just keep running massive deficits.
Do you believe a lot of efficiency can be found in this review?
Yeah, look, I think there's enormous opportunity. I mean, I think what the Minister has put forward is a reform agenda, initiatives to work on over the next little while, which offer huge potential. And we know that because these are the sorts of initiatives that countries around the world are successfully implementing.
Now, can I move still on health to headlines today that the government has locked in billions in funding cuts in the budget on schools and hospitals. Now, why is that, given that the Prime Minister says that sort of thing is up for discussion with state leaders at the retreat in July?
Well, Ticky, let's be clear, they're not funding cuts. There's going to be continued significant increases in health and education.
Well, reduction in those increases.
What we need to do is contain the growth, and that's a very important distinction. We've got very rapid growth in health and education spending at the moment, 7, 8, 9% a year, and we can't continue with that or we'll swamp the budget. We will send the country quite literally broke. So there is a discussion to have with the states about how we contain that spending, or indeed how the states raise more tax. But if the states want more taxes, they don't want to contain the spending, then they're going to have to work with us to do that. So that's a very, very important discussion. My own view, by the way, is that we do have lots of opportunity to contain that growth in spending, particularly in health, in the coming years.
Labor appears to be leading the debate in this pre-budget window, offering up its ideas on Google tax, Chris Bowen talking about super and even negative gearing.
Look, they're very piecemeal offerings. If you look at, for instance, the multinational tax debate, Labor has said, well, we can fix this by dealing with the gearing level of multinationals, but that's not how they move tax. I mean, it's quite naive, commercially naive, a lot of what they're putting forward, and it's quite piecemeal. Our approach to this will be through the tax reform white paper process. It won't be piecemeal. It'll be much more integrated, much more coherent, and for that reason, it will work.
And what about super, for example? Because I think you yourself have talked about the sense in tax concessions, removing some of these concessions.
Well, look, it's an important debate, but what we don't want to do is undermine savings. Savings, if we go right back to why superannuation was established in the first place, it was all about higher savings and being able to reduce the pension burden in the future. We need to make sure any change in tax concessions doesn't impact that. But the whole debate about tax, it shouldn't be derailed by some kind of simplistic class warfare. What we really need is a sensible debate about how much tax we need, and in particular how we keep taxes down, and then how we raise tax as efficiently as possible.
What about small business in the budget? You've been a small businessman in addition to being a banker. There's a promise of a 1.5% cut for those who are incorporated, but for others, can they expect things like asset write-offs and tax loss carry-forwards, things like that?
Well, look, there will be a small business package in the budget, and this will be a real focus of the government. We know that we've got a big runoff happening in mining investment. We know it needs to be replaced with investment elsewhere in the economy. One part of the economy where there's shovel-ready projects right now is in the small business sector. We want them to invest. We want them to create jobs. We want those shovel-ready projects
to happen. Things like
accelerated
depreciation would be such a help.
Well, they're the sorts of initiatives, of course, that we're looking at, and we will continue to look at in the lead up to the budget. We need to make sure those investments do happen and the jobs are created in the small business sector. You know, we're seeing that now. I've got farmers in my electorate who are ready to start investing in silos and storages and other major investments. We want to see those investments happening.
Very briefly, the Treasurer doesn't seem to be talking about a surplus anymore. Is this budget going to be able to cushion us from future shocks?
Well, we need to make sure it's a sensible and prudent budget. It doesn't actually cruel the economy, but at the same time we've got to be on a pathway to surplus, and I think we will be, Ticky, and there's no doubt about that.
Angus Taylor, thank you very much for joining us there.
Thanks, Ticky.